GymWits, GymWits. If you want to know the truth about fitness, from workout fads to diet myths, hitting pads, power lifts. GymWits, GymWits. That's right. There's no guy out there wants bench tits, and we can't guarantee that you're gonna look great. But if you want to stay in shape, well, you better hit that. GymWits, GymWits. That's right, man. You tell 'em.
Welcome to the GymWits podcast. I'm Ryan George.
I'm Justin Guild, a.k.a. Chef Sonic.
And we are the GymWits. So now, to answer the question you've all been waiting for, Justin, what is the great celebrity trainer secret?
Well, celebrity trainers know that they can charge a lot more for the exact same service, so they do.
Well, there's your answer. So anyway, this is a fitness podcast. Everything we talk about is in some way, shape, or form related to fitness. But today we're actually going to try to define fitness for you guys. So, Justin, you and I are 33. We've known each other for a very long time. Think back to when we were 11, 12 years old. Like, what was fit to us?
Well, probably fit to us back then was something that was very aesthetically pleasing. So probably professional wrestlers, bodybuilders, stuff like that. So if you had really big muscles, we would probably assume that that the person was in really good shape.
Yeah, and
we never really thought about what's going on in their insides or their heart health. Like that stuff probably never occurred to us.
Yeah, and then we get a little bit older, like in our teens, early, mid, late teens, even like that shifts to like actual pro athletes because they not only have the physical or aesthetic looks, but they actually are performing. So then there's another layer on top of that. Still no consideration for future health problems that they may have, or the variety of other issues that do come with being any level of athlete.
Now I look at the older guy in the gym and say, wow, when I'm in my 60s, that's how I want to look. That's how I want to be performing.
That's actually what I was getting at was, then we get to an age now, we're still pretty young, we're still, still healthy and in good shape, but you start, thinking, okay, I got to maintain this. And all of a sudden fitness is no longer about like necessarily about or only about looks or performance, but it's actually about, well, I need this body or this machine to be able to perform for the next 30, hopefully 40, 50 years. So then, the definition of fitness changes a little bit. So anyway, we got a little bit off the topic for a second, but why don't you tell me first before I give the definition, what's fitness to you? Like how would you define fitness?
Well, I always think of fitness as a constant state of being. Your fitness level, I know that's sort of defining it in itself, but generally how healthy you are, how athletic you are, how sort of limber you are, all these different attributes that have to do with your body also has to do with your heart health, your lung capacity, kind of the constant state of being as it relates to your health, your fitness, athleticism level, all those sort of combined to create your current state of fitness. Am I close?
Pretty close, yeah. Actually, no, that's pretty close. It seems like we say this every time. Things can be very subjective and very much depend on the situation and the person involved. But kind of in a general sense, fitness is defined as one's physical state of health and well-being. So obviously that's incredibly broad. To be more specific, though, it also can refer to one's ability to perform a specific task efficiently and with minimal fatigue. So again, there's a huge amount of subjectivity to this. Fitness for a professional football player is going to be a lot different from fitness for somebody who
runs
85
a marathon
or from a marathon. Exactly, because so the tasks you perform, and even within football, fitness for a quarterback is going to be different from fitness for a lineman. So it really varies greatly, but in a general sense, that's what it is. So we look at, okay, obviously we talk a lot about pro athletes. That tends to be our ideal in certain ways, and we'll discuss in a future podcast on why that may or may not be the ideal. But when it comes to just normal everyday life, obviously fitness is different. It's about performance, but it's kind of performance in life and also maintaining the body over an extended period of time. So it becomes kind of very, very subjective.
The more you think about it, the more you compare it to having a car. And I know you don't drive, but I drive. I rely on my car to get everywhere, and you're constantly bringing it in for maintenance to get this little thing fixed, this little thing fixed. And I feel as we're getting older, we deal with a similar thing as going to a doctor, right? You have this little issue, then you have this thing, and you got to get it fixed. And the difference is with the body, I feel you can sort of you can maintain it. You can help by following certain fitness guidelines. Obviously, exercising, proper nutrition, which I don't know if that necessarily is part of the fitness definition, but it certainly plays in. Your current state of fitness is aided by your nutrition. So once again, all those things, I guess, combine to make your current state.
Yeah, absolutely. There are a few things we'll talk about. And basically for today, what we're going to discuss, we'll discuss some basic levels, like what's basic fitness, like what do you need just to be considered, at a base level fit for just everyday life. We'll talk about some ways that you can test yourself. So not only for basic level, but what would kind of put you in a little bit higher level of fitness. We'll talk about some lifestyle factors, and then some interesting, like kind of within our society, who are our most fit people, who are most fit non-athletes, and what are the kind of requirements for that. So we're going to go into a few different things to really discuss fitness in a broader sense than when we just kind of we throw fitness around often, but again, it's not often that it's really defined. So what do you think are the basic things we look for in fitness? Like what are we looking at if we want to tell if somebody's healthy or not? Like what are we looking at?
Well, I think a lot of people would look at the looks, and especially in terms of their body fat. I think that we consider that, we hold that in a very high regard. How much fat does someone have on them? And we know that definitely does impact your overall health, although maybe not as much as we think it does. And I know that sometimes it's actually more healthy to have a little bit of body fat than to have none. But I know that's something that we would regard as being healthy, is not having too much body fat. Probably also the size of one's muscles. Now, I'm not necessarily talking about being a bodybuilder, but if you could see someone has decent sized muscles, they're they look like they work out. That's probably another important thing for regarding what would be considered fit. I think that a doctor would look at your insides, your organs, and look at your heart and see how well your heart is functioning, look at your blood pressure, stuff like that. And that would be more important to a doctor. Yeah. So I guess it might even depend on who's looking at it. Yeah,
no, absolutely. I think at a basic level, you're right. Weight is one of the first things we can look at and observe. You can just see it by observation, or you can actually test it by BMI or body fat. And so yeah, that's actually the first thing on my list of like, what are the things we look for? We look at your weight. And again, there's BMI, which is kind of a ratio of your height to weight that, it's doctors use it often, and it's used in a lot of different studies when they're checking people for, various studies that are dealing with obesity or weight. It's somewhat controversial just in that somebody who's very, very muscular is going to get a rating for being potentially obese or morbidly obese. Somebody who's very thin, who maybe is fit but thinner and tall, they may get kind of flagged for being anorexic or borderline. So it's a little tricky with measuring it, but
well, I know I'm about 5'10". I weigh probably 195 pounds right now. I think I could lose a few pounds, but I'm certainly very fit, and it's partially my genetics and my working out, but that would be considered pretty overweight if you look at just the BMI index compared to my height. But I know I'm not. I'm more fit than a lot of people that might have have the closer ratio that is deemed correct. Yeah,
and that's also why there are so many other parameters to look at beyond just BMI. But anyway, as an alternative to BMI is actually body fat. That's probably the better alternative if it's possible to use. And then you can check to see. So body fat essentially is just a ratio of the amount of fat in you have your weight, and then you have your fat weight, and then your fat-free mass, which is, muscle, bone, water. Water is part of fat anyway. But just anything that's not fat is then measured. So, if you have access to it, so it's interesting. Basically, the kind of to be considered fit or average for BMI, for men would be 18 to 24, and women would be 25 to 31. So if you want to actually measure your BMI, we'll post in the show notes a link to where you can actually measure your BMI. As far as body fat, you're going to need access to either equipment or somebody who knows how to use calipers. But for body fat, fit would be for men would be a 14 to 17% body fat. For women, it would be 21 to 24% body fat. So the other parameter we look at, so there's, you mentioned blood pressure, and in addition to blood pressure, we also look at your resting heart rate. So that's also something, which is basically just how many times per minute your heart beats at rest, which should be about 60 to 100. So, testing your body fat's fairly easy if you can find, if you've got a few different spots to check, check your pulse, and you would just measure that for a minute. The best way to check for a minute, and then again, if it's within 60 to 100, that's generally considered fit.
And this is for your resting heart?
Yeah, resting heart rate. Then the other thing we look at, just as a trainer, just in general, is your mobility and flexibility. So how mobile are you? How restricted are you? That can lead to a lot of issues. Maybe, when you're in your 20s, you can be fairly restricted, inflexible, even, not super mobile. But as you get older, that's where you really start to see the effects, the kind of cumulative effect of not being flexible or not stretching or being immobile or being sedentary. So that's something else to look for is, how flexible are you? How mobile are you? And that, again, will play into, especially at, later on in life, how you function.
Now, something that has sort of become popular or a popular topic, especially for older and even elderly people, is bone density. I know that it's one of those things you probably don't think about when you're younger, but I know that it becomes super important for people as they get older.
Yeah, absolutely. And diet and exercise play a big role in that. And if the people who don't eat well and who don't exercise are much more likely to deal with bone density issues. There are genetic factors as well, but in general, like, one of the things to do to fight against it is eating properly and exercise.
I've heard that just using, for people that are older, just a couple light weight workouts per week can, just do tremendous benefits for bone density.
Yeah. Well, actually, an interesting thing. So you mentioned older. An interesting test for mortality amongst just people in general, and it's a significant difference, is the sit to stand test. So it's basically like if you were to sit on the floor cross-legged, how much, being able to get up from that position and get back down, that is a significant indicator of your mortality within the next 5 years. I forget the exact numbers, but it's statistically significant. Like, the more assistance you need to get up, the more likely you are to die, like, within a 5-year period. So that's actually another test of your fitness. Is
that makes me feel good.
Yeah, you can get up from across.
Of course, I practiced that a lot.
Yeah. So hopefully, so it's an interesting thing. That's one of the better tests, especially for older adults. One of the better tests for your fitness and ability. And that actually kind of falls in a little bit. We talked about functional movements being a buzzword, but I think functional movement is an indicator of your fitness in that, whatever your sport is. Again, your sport could just be, putting your groceries up and walking up the stairs, or your sport could be baseball. But can you perform the movements required for your everyday life? And if you can't, then that's obviously an indicator of poor fitness.
What about something like this? Aesthetics in terms of things that might not immediately appeal to the eye, but that will if you look closely, like skin tone, someone's color in their face. When someone doesn't look good, like the color is drained from them, or maybe your bags under your eyes, or just your sort of the way that you look, not in terms of sort of the life that's in you. I know it's a little ethereal, but you can look at someone, you can say, oh, that person looks healthy, and then you can look at someone and say, oh, they don't look too healthy.
I mean, that's definitely not something I'm an expert in. I feel like there are definitely certain things that are going to be, maybe. I mean, I'm sure there are things that you can look at somebody and that might be an indicator of a certain disease. Like maybe if someone's a certain color, or they're breaking out in a certain way, or they're developing, there may be certain things that a medical professional could then look at as a symptom or a sign of some underlying problem. But that's definitely not something I would be an expert on, like being able to look and say, okay, your skin's turning purple. So this is an indicator of, I mean, if we're sparring and I get hit in the ribs and my skin turns purple, then I can tell you. But, that's that's a tough one to really answer. Because I'm just not an expert on that. Maybe we'll get an expert to interview. We could talk about that. So I mean, those, that's a little bit on some of the base level things that we look for when we're discussing fitness. So again, if you're an athlete, all of these kind of parameters are going to be different from just your normal average everyday person, because athletes have very specific requirements. And again, when we talked about the definition of fitness, it's the ability to perform a task efficiently and with minimal fatigue. So the requirements are going to be much different depending on and even within athletes, like whatever your sport's going to be a different requirement.
So I have one that I actually heard the other day that I thought was really interesting. I don't know the exact term, I'm sure you'll know it, but and this was for athletes, and it had to do with your sort of body in space, or your limbs in space, and kind of knowing exactly like where your limbs are and your body is in space, and being able to sort of close your eyes and just know where they are. Do you know what I'm referring to?
Yeah. I think you're referring to proprioception.
That's what.
Okay.
That's what it is. No, that's for any based on any athlete. That's an important gauge.
That's important for everybody. Like proprioception. I mean, again, if you're, one of the bigger problems with older adults is falling, and the more aware of your body in space, the more you may trip on, like for you and me, we trip on something. We have pretty good proprioception. I do a lot of balance and eyes closed training, which works those. Basically, proprioceptors are receptors in your body that give you feedback as far as where you are in space. So one of the easiest ways to train your proprioception is close your eyes, because we're so used to what we see that if you shut that down, all of a sudden everything gets harder. Like a simple test. If you're at home right now, it's a very simple test. Okay, stand on one leg. Try to count how many seconds, up to let's say 20 or 30 seconds, how long you can balance on one leg, eyes open. No movement, just eyes open. Now do the same thing with your eyes closed, and it's going to be significantly harder. You're probably going to start shaking. You're going to have a really hard time staying balanced. And so that's one of the easiest ways to show, okay, that's proprioception for you. Once you shut off the visual, that feedback that we're so used to, now you have to rely on these other senses that kind of get inhibited because we just rely so much on what we see. So let's say you and I trip. Pretty easy. We got good balance. We're able to catch ourselves. But if you're older, your reaction time's not that quick. Maybe your spatial awareness isn't that great. It's a significant problem. So proprioception is not only important for athletes, and I think one of the big things for me, I always say, like, the best athletes are the ones that have you say the strongest core, but also just their awareness of where they are is so much greater than everyone else. And we look at MMA, which is our, for Justin and I, probably our favorite sport, which is mixed martial arts. And the best athletes are always the ones that just, they always seem like they're in control. Their bodies are even when they're in a bad position, they're always in control. And I, say part of that is having just good core strength and stability, but also part of it is just proprioception. Just their body's awareness is better than everyone else. And that gives them that little bit of an advantage. So I hope that answers your question. That's a good one, actually. Totally. Yeah, that's a really important thing that we haven't discussed. So maybe we'll get we'll spend an episode
probably
at
do
some
a full
point
episode
talking about it.
on
You
just
could
that
absolutely
concept.
talk about it. But yeah, if you have a chance, if you're listening to the podcast right now, try it, and I guarantee when you close your eyes, it's going to be a little bit a different experience, unless you practice stuff with your eyes closed. So anyway, now we're going to get to, speaking of tests, so this is a great segue that I swear we did not plan. I wanted to talk about some different ways that you can test your own fitness. So if you wanted to test yourself to see, what's average, what's good, or what would be considered, good fitness. So we're just going to run through a couple things. So obviously, cardiovascular fitness is something that is very important, right? It's the ability of your heart to supply oxygen to the muscles. And there are a few ways to test it. So one way is a 1.5 mile run, which isn't significantly hard. It's not running a marathon, but it definitely is going to challenge yourself, and it's going to challenge your cardiovascular abilities. So just how long do you think it'll take for you to run a mile and a half? You don't run, so.
I hate running. I'm not good and I'm not efficient at it. I could probably, if I really pushed hard, it would be uncomfortable. Yeah. But I could probably do that. Let's see. When I used to run, I used to go for 10-minute miles, so 15. I could probably, if I really wanted to do it, I could probably do it in 13 minutes.
Okay, so
it would be uncomfortable for me, and I would be hurt afterwards. But if that was my only workout thing, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna push for it. I could probably do that.
All right, so you'd be
Maybe even less.
Okay, so you'd be
What do you
maybe
think I could do
around
at it
average.
less?
You could probably do less if you were training. If you're trying, obviously,
If I ran for a couple weeks, I could do it.
yeah,
Probably pretty
I mean your cardio
easy. I
is
just
good.
hate
Training.
running.
Yeah, I'm with you with that. So basically a fit for that number or for 1.5 mile run would be 8 to 11 minutes for men, and then 9 to 12 for women. So that that's a high level. And so then right outside of that, if you're at 12, 13 minutes, that's going to be a good average. Or
I
good
could probably
range,
do
so
it at 11 minutes
do
or
it.
12 if I tried. I remember when I was running a lot, I could do a 6-minute mile.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Huh. I think I've done 6 minutes. I don't like. I'm the same. I can run. I actually will. I can sprint and I can run for long distance, but anywhere in between I don't like. So I don't like running. I could do a 10-mile run. If I don't have to really think too much about my pace, or I could go sprint, but I hate anything in between.
Yeah.
All right. So let me get. So then we look at strength, right? So muscular strength is important. Upper body strength is important. Push-ups. So what do you think the average is for push-ups?
That someone can do.
Yeah.
I think that the average with that person that doesn't work out could probably do 6
That
push-ups.
doesn't work. Just say average. Just
Average person maybe 6 push-ups.
6? Huh. Okay, well, so no, average would be 20 to 35 push-ups.
Okay. Maybe I'm
for
giving
men.
people too much, not enough credit.
Yeah. Average for women would be 10 to 20 push-ups. So again, if you're well above either of those numbers, then you're pretty fit. If you're well below those numbers, then you might need to work. And it makes sense. I think if you can only do 6 push-ups, that's you're gonna want to work on your upper body strength because it's not that hard.
You're talking about like a real push-up with perfect form.
Yeah, exactly. Full push-up. So then you have some other measures of kind of strength. So now we get, let's say people, if you're in the gym, so bench press. So bench press it's variable. Obviously, everybody different size. Somebody who's 6'5" and 300 pounds of muscle is going to be or muscle or not muscle,
Just
but
to
that
hear
size
that you want to be
different
able to bench press your weight.
Yes, that's exactly it. So basically, if you can bench press in your body weight, that's like, let's say, novice level for men. And then for women, that's actually advanced. So if you can bench press your body weight for women, that's pretty advanced. If you're a guy, that's going to be kind of novice level. But again, if that's a milestone, I think an important milestone, for anyone. I remember when we started lifting weights, that was a big milestone. And then also, 135 when you get one, the plates on each side, that's a big deal. The 2 plates is also huge, but then there's like, the body weight.
I feel so much of lifting weights is, especially with something like that, a bench press is a learned motion. I remember when I was benching all the time, I did, I could do 2 plates, more than that, fairly easily for lots of reps, just because I got so used to the motion.
Yeah, that's absolutely an aspect of it. So you take it a bit of a grain of salt when you get somebody who's benching all the time and they can bench press. I think there's a certain level where it's not as it loses its effectiveness to an extent, but there is that level of being able to bench close to your body weight a little bit more. Then there's the deadlift, which is another probably of all the weightlifting exercises probably the best as far as just strength building. That would be, so what do you say? What do you deadlift now, or what's say your best deadlift?
The best thing I ever deadlifted was probably 300 pounds.
300. Okay, so and what do you? So
I weighed a little less back then. I did deadlifts yesterday. I did 2 plates on each side, and I did. The most I did of that was 6 reps.
Okay, good. So yeah, with the deadlift,
I haven't been doing too much lifting recently.
Deadlifting double your body weight for men would be advanced. So intermediate to advanced. So if you double your body weight, so you're a little, so you're around average then. So but you don't lift. You're not a big weightlifter.
That's for someone. I mean, for average.
Yeah.
You mean average for a weightlifter because you think. Well, how many reps you mean? Because I could probably I could do 1 rep of 350 probably right now. Maybe you know what?
Yeah.
I might even be able to do 375.
Yeah, I think for 1 rep
I could do
max.
1.
So,
Are you referring to 1 rep?
Yeah, I'm referring to 1 rep max.
Well, that
so.
changes. That sort of changes
Okay.
everything. I think I could get up 1 rep of if I just pushed hard. I could do probably 375.
Fair enough. And then bent or deadlifting your own weight would be novice for women. So that is a measure there. And then we got one more weightlifting exercise, which would be the squat. So body weight is intermediate for women, and then for intermediate for men, you got to do 1.5 times your body weight. So which you're well within. I remember
That's not that hard.
I mean,
Funny,
in a while.
the squat seems to be a lot lesser of a like the deadlift to seem to to be intermediate is twice your body weight seems a lot more difficult than doing a 1.5 times your body weight squat. I find the squat to be much easier.
Well, deadlift requires grip strength. So remember with the squat you just have the weight on your back. It's still hard. It's not an easy exercise.
Sure,
but with deadlift you're holding at some level. Like I remember when I did do a lot of early on when I lifted weights. When I was in my early 20s, I would deadlift and I started using these hooks, and the hooks were great because it eliminated your grip strength. But my weights were increasing, but again, I wasn't working the grip strength.
Grip strength is so important.
Yeah.
For things.
So when I started lift and I stopped lifting probably and I started lifting again, I really only did that when I did deadlift. I only did it with the without the hooks. So I was using the grips, which again you can't lift quite as much because the grip strength at some point becomes like the weakest link in the chain.
So having that grip strength is so important for different.
So you needed to reiterate that.
But I mean, well, think about it for especially for anything if you're doing any type of grappling, anything like that, judo, especially if you're holding the gi or just anything like that. You're holding the grip is so important. Like holding on. I don't know. It's so funny. I don't know what you're laughing at.
Fair enough. All right. It was the way you looked when you said. Okay. All right. So anyway, so these are some simple ways that you can test yourself if you want to test your fitness levels.
How do you test grip strength?
Grip strength. That's a good question. I don't know.
They used to have these old machines. I saw it on Pawn Stars, where someone brought in this machine. How you test your grip strength? It was like one of these old from like the 30s or something.
They have machines
like
actually.
A carnival thing where you would like try to grip it and press your grip strength.
They actually have machines that you can use to test. I'm forgetting the name. I should know the name of this, and it's like just I'm blanking right now. But there is actually tests for grip strength that are used for certain medical purposes and also even for athletic testing. Grip strength is obviously important, as you mentioned. There's definitely sports where.
And it's funny that that we're kind of joking about it, but if you think about it, as you get older, the smaller some of the smaller joints and some of the smaller muscle groups like in your hands can tend to get injured quite easily. Something like carpal tunnel and tendinitis, which I know that just means that basically your hands are hurting or they're tight and they can't diagnose. This is basically what tendinitis means. So I've heard. It's a big fear for me to get carpal tunnel or something like that. So I don't actually know if doing all these weights will actually help or it might actually hinder. I have a feeling that they'll help for the future, but maybe that's just wishful thinking on my part.
It should. I think with anything, there's a level. If you do too much of it, you're risking injury. But yeah, I can't see how it would hurt you negatively with the weightlifting and the increased grip strength, unless like you were building so many muscles in your fingers that you'd slow down your ability to play the guitar.
Yeah.
All right, so when it comes to lifestyle, it's important to understand that exercise isn't the only thing. So when we're talking about fitness, it's not enough to just exercise, but you have to be active even when you're not working out. So you can work out 3 hours every morning, 5 days a week. But if you then go to work and you sit for 8-9 hours at a time, you're still dealing with all of the adverse effects of living a sedentary lifestyle. And that sitting is linked to all causes of mortality. And this is a subject we're going to talk about, get more in detail later, because this is a subject that deserves a podcast of its own. But being inactive is just as unhealthy as if you didn't exercise. So if you didn't exercise, but you had an active lifestyle, you actually would be healthier than if you exercise a lot, but then you're incredibly sedentary.
Long bouts of being sedentary.
Yeah,
so you're saying break it up a little bit.
Yeah.
If you're sitting at your desk, you're sitting at your computer for hours in a day. Get up. Walk the dog. Stretch a little bit. Just at intervals, and just doing little things like that can really save a lot of heartache in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so Justin, what's the ideal for you? What's the ideal for fitness in your mind? What do you think?
Well, obviously, professional athletes depending on the sport, but certainly professional athletes would be an ideal. Probably after that, I would think any type of fitness professional, trainers, or at least some of the trainers that really get into it themselves, maybe a fitness model. So
but do you really think so, with how some of them are obviously very they're fit, but also who knows what kind of drugs, or if they're,
guess
how
it's an
their
interesting way to
diets
look
are.
at it.
Like, do you still is that just something that's inherent in us? We see that, and that's like, we consider that fitness, even though we know like they may not be the most fit people, even athletes. Like, we know most athletes will deal with significant amounts of surgery and physical limitations after the sport. So I guess the question is it better to be incredibly fit for a very short period of time, or is it better to not be that fit but to maintain it throughout your life?
I think it depends on the individual,
Yeah.
and everyone wants to live their life their own way. So if you're happy doing that and being very athletic for a while, and you can make a lot of money doing it, then that's great. If you're happy being fit just on a nice healthy level for the majority of your life, you live a nice long healthy life, and if that's what makes you happy, if that's what floats your boat, well, that's great too.
All right, what's best for you?
Well, for me, knowing that I'm not going to be a professional athlete, that I was never born with that ability, for me, just having an overall level of fitness that makes me healthy and that allows me to perform my daily activities. So, when I, just being healthy in a way that it helps me think, because I know having a nice healthy body also helps you perform better. It's, makes your mind, makes your brain stronger as well. So if I'm able to perform my tasks, playing guitar, producing music, writing, fitness helps me in doing that, then that's what would make me happy.
Okay, so fair enough. I was thinking the one group you didn't mention is soldiers. So they're probably the most out of our athletes, the people who fitness is not only a requirement. Performance is important for their lives. Like it literally will save their lives, if they're fit. So I was looking at some of the requirements. The Army, the Marines, and the Navy SEALs obviously then are the elite of the elite. And just looking at what they have to do once they kind of get accepted is insane in and of itself. But just to be accepted, just to kind of pass the physical requirements, it's kind of crazy. I'll give you a list of some of the things that they have to do. So you got a 500-meter swim, which I can't swim. So if we revealed in this podcast, I can't swim and I can't drive. So this would eliminate me right off the bat. But they have to do it in 12 minutes and under 12 minutes and 30 seconds. And the competitive number is 10 minutes and 30. And the best, elite is 9 minutes and 30 seconds. Now, I really don't have much of a context for it because I don't swim. So I'm sure some people will listen to those numbers and think those are really impressive. It's hard for me because I just don't get it because I don't swim. The other one I'm looking at, so they have to do 42 push-ups in 2 minutes. That's just the minimum, which is not too hard. 79 is competitive, and then 100 is like the top. You get like an A on that. So it's tough, but not terrible. But again, that's not something the average person is gonna be doing. 50 sit-ups in 2 minutes. Again, that's the minimum. 79 is competitive, and then 100 is, again, you get an A. So this is the hard one. So they have to be able to do 6 consecutive dead hang pull-ups. So just full from a dead hang. That's the minimum. And then 25 is is like you get the top score, and then 11 would be competitive on that. So that's stuff like 6 doesn't seem that hard, but try doing 6 full from a dead hang. It's not easy. And then I
think that 6 that's how much I can do.
Yeah.
I can't do another one.
Yeah. And then a 1.5 mile run in their boots and trousers. So we were actually talking about 1.5 mile run. So the minimum is 11 minutes and 30 seconds. Competitive is under 10 minutes and 20 seconds. And then again, your A level is 9 minutes and 30 seconds, which is crazy. And then this is just like you meet the physical requirements. It doesn't mean you're in, or it doesn't mean anything. It's just if you can do this, you meet the physical requirements. Now you can, get on to whatever the next step is, as far, I guess, in their own application process. But I think that's interesting as far as what are they looking for the most fit civilians. This is what you have to do to then possibly have a chance at being an elite soldier. So
Well, that's interesting. And if you think about it, you're going to need that level of fitness to perform. And then, of course, there's all the psychological aspects of it too,
and that's
being able to
nothing, because
perform
then
under extreme pressure.
Yeah, because then there's a whole other aspect which we didn't even discuss really is psychological fitness. And again, that's something I think we will discuss, but with an expert, with somebody who's like a mind coach or a psychologist, somebody who really deals with this directly. Because there is the mental part is almost as important as physical, if not more important. And then there is mental fitness. And again, that's a whole thing we didn't even touch today. And that's a huge aspect of any type of military, or for that matter, athletic training is being mentally tough and being able to deal with adversity. Is just as important as actually having the physical tools. And in fact, there are often times we've seen it where somebody has the physical tools, but they don't have it mentally, and they can be defeated by somebody who maybe doesn't have the same physical tools, but mentally
stronger,
are strong. So that's it. Anything else you want to discuss about fitness? Any other questions you have? Or
I think it's to sort of end with this is, let's say you're new to fitness and you're hearing us talk about all this stuff. And I know we've discussed about the people that are new to fitness. I know this is not a new topic for us either. And we're talking about Navy SEALs doing this crazy stuff, professional athletes, deadlifts. Someone who's new to fitness, they can't even dream about bench pressing their body weight or deadlifting 300 pounds. That is so far off. And we're just saying, oh, this is just average stuff. If you can just deadlift 350 pounds, that's average. If you can bench press, 250 pounds, that's average, And someone's listening, be like, I can't even get close to that. How do you get into it without being discouraged right off the bat?
Oh, that's true. So, that's a very good point, and something didn't really consider. At the end of the day, when we're especially when you're talking about the actual numbers, those are often obviously deal with people who are lifting weights and doing it regularly, and that's something that can, for some people who are just starting, it can be very attainable, and then for some people it may or may not be, for a variety of reasons, may not be attainable. The challenge or the competition is always kind of it's an internal one. So whatever you can do, if you can only do one push-up, or if you can't do a push-up, then you start with half a push-up, or you start with, so you kind of find whatever you're capable of doing now, and you want to try to work towards always doing a little bit better next time. It could be half of a rep, or it could be a couple pounds, on a bench press, or it could be, again, one or two more push-ups, whatever. You just always kind of want to do a little bit better than you did before. And it's true, like there's always going to be somebody. It's hard. You don't want to compete with other people unless that's your sport, or you're participating in an activity that by its own nature is competitive. But you always want to do a little bit better than you did last time, or at least try. And week to week, you're not always going to do better, but if you were to plot it on a graph, like the graph should over weeks and months always kind of trend upwards. So yeah, for somebody starting out, obviously you don't want to start looking at these numbers and it'll be discouraging, but maybe you set that as a goal, or wherever you start, you just always work towards doing a little bit better, and that means you're getting more fit. If you're doing a little bit better each time, then you're always increasing your fitness levels. So that's what I say anytime I'm working with a client who's not working out or hasn't worked out in a long time. I think that is an important thing, because they'll look at somebody and they'll see somebody who's just in incredible shape, and it can be discouraging. Or they'll look at somebody lifting a certain amount of weight and it's discouraging, or they're doing some kind of activity and it's discouraging. And yes, a lot of times, like, look, don't worry about them, just worry about you get a little bit better each time, and the competition is an internal one, not an external one, unless you decide at some point that you want to make it an external competition, and that's what bodybuilding contests are for, or weightlifting, or whatever whatever the competition is.
And, I'm not professional in any regards, but the way I like to think about it is the same way that even putting a little bit of money in the bank, say you don't make a ton of money, but you put a little bit in, you know that the little bit of money that you put in will pay off down the road, or your investments, even if you're investing a small amount, will pay bigger dividends down the road. So with fitness and, working out and every little thing you do, I like to look at it as you're putting it in your health bank. So it will pay off a little bit, even if you're just doing, a couple push-ups. That's all you can do at first. Then you get a little bit more. Every little thing you're doing, you're putting it in the bank. And later in life, as you get older, those, dividends will pay off, and you'll find yourself being healthier each time you contribute to the health bank. I don't know if that's a good way to look at it, but to me, that
great.
makes sense.
That sounds good. Inspiring words from Chef Sonic.
Nice.
So, all right, well, that about wraps things up. As usual, if you guys have any questions or comments, please, check us out at thegymwits.com. We'd love to hear your feedback. As always, you can check the website out, ask us questions. There's an Ask the Trainer box right there. So if you have a question that you want us to answer on the Ask the Trainer section, don't hesitate to put it there. We will answer your questions until we get such an overwhelming volume of questions that we can't possibly answer. But then if we do, we'll just add more episodes. But yeah, ask questions, rate us on iTunes.
You guys are doing great so far. We really appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely. Please rate some more. Yep. Thanks a lot. Thanks for listening. And that's it. I'm Ryan George.
Justin Guild, aka Chef Sonic.
And we are the GymWits.